I thought I'd take a second to answer all the questions that have come up on how the homemade range extender that I built works. Sometimes you're not as close to power as you hoped, so this is a quick walkthrough on the functionality of the range extender. We'll talk through what's going on here. The heart of the system is a 12,000 watt 220 volt 12,000 XP inverter. This is actually the most expensive component of the system. Mated to that is a Tesla wall charger, and we'll get on to little backup chargers in a second. The wall charger requires constant 50 amps, which this beast does provide. There is a bus to make sure that I equally distribute the draw from each of these batteries, which is positioned there. And it's so simple to use. Grab your Tesla wall charger and just, you do at home, plug in, getting a green light. Let's go and see what type of charging we're getting. Let's turn the music down before we land up a copyright hit of some description. All right, this is the impressive part, is we're getting 48 amps. This is going to take a Cybertruck from 57%, 4 hours and 40 minutes. Now, realistically, I won't get 4 hours of charging. I'm going to get about 20%. Should give me about 80 miles of range. But what we'll actually do is run this all the way flat to see what it can do. Dead simple, really. Nothing too complicated about it. All right, let's go see what's happening in the back. You're going to hear the inverter fans spinning up. The way that I position those fans is that I can close this all up if it's raining. I can close up the bed, just making sure that I leave a fraction of space to make sure it gets the ventilation that I need. Close up the bed and you're good to go. Okay, couple of points on my design methodology. Number one, I was looking for flexibility. This entire unit can be uninstalled in about 45 minutes. The hardest part is lifting stuff in and out. I wanted the entire unit to be completely reusable, can be repurposed. So let's pull this bad boy out and let's go and have a look at the brains, if that's what you want to call it. Behind this, all we've got is cheap Chins 7,600 kilowatt hour batteries. I have mated 5 of them. Believe it or not, it took a hell of a lot of time to decide on the orientation, and I'm not entirely sure that is my final solution. Each one of these has its own included battery LCD monitor, so I can manage each battery individually. But this is more for diagnostics, so that I can make sure that each battery is draining at an equal rate. Haven't got that perfect yet, but it's, as you're going to see as I'm busy doing the charge, I'm managed to equalize that. Really easy to disconnect a battery. All right, each one has its own individual power off, so I can isolate a particular battery if it is not as charged as the rest. Really simple. A super sturdy case. It's all steel. It is vented as well. And these batteries include not only the terminals that you need, but also includes the smart LCD panel. And this gives you a couple of useful pieces of information, including your ability to remotely manage the battery using Bluetooth, turn on and off charging, and auto balancing. These batteries do have a hot and cold cutoff, as well as a 200 amp peak cutoff, so it's going to prevent overcharging, over discharging, under temperature charging, over temperature charging. They're lithium iron phosphate cells. Each lithium iron phosphate cell is completely isolated from each other one. I love the steel casing. In the event, very unlikely event of thermal runaway, It's pretty limited in this sturdy steel case from that. These are all connected into a Victron power distributor. The main reason that I wanted to use the Victron power distributor is that I've had it in stock in my garage from a prior project. But most importantly, it's essential that you keep the cable lengths the same length from the inverter as every other cable for every other battery. Otherwise, you're going to get an unequal discharge or charge of the battery, and you're going to have a problem. Let's talk about the Tesla wall charger. Now, this was a relatively expensive solution compared to the standard mobile charger. The standard mobile charger will charge at up to 32 amps. This is going to give me up to 48 amps. And when you're talking about a Cybertruck, or when you want that power, the difference between 32 and 48 amps charging is pretty significant. And we'll go and have a look at the stats on the screen in a little second to see what type of kilowatts I'm pulling from this and how quickly realistically I can charge. As I mentioned before, the heart of this beast is the 12,000 XP from EG4. Okay, this guy really is a beast. 12,000 watts continuous, up to 50 amps, and maybe you can see the criticism that I do have is the screen is absolutely awful on this. Really hard to see the screen for real, never mind on camera. But I'm pulling 12,000 watts continuous, and these fans are keeping up quite nicely with that. As you can see, I'm putting roughly 48 amps from each individual battery. So I'm getting a nice even balance across those individual batteries. Again, all these screens are more for diagnostics and making sure that things are charging and discharging as I expect them. I just keep one at the top here, which is for the middle cell, just to give me an indication of what's going on. Okay, as you can see, I should get about another 2 hours of charge from this solution. And we'll go and have a look inside in a second to see what type of power it's delivering. So you might be asking, how do I recharge the system? We'll go into that in more detail. I have designed it once again with flexibility in mind. Broadly speaking, I have three main solutions. The XP itself does have a 220 in, which of course you can plug into the Cybertruck, and you can recharge this entire system using the inverter's onboard charger, which I have throttled to 7,000 watts to make sure that I'm not stressing the Cybertruck's onboard power systems. Then I like having flexibility, so included with the batteries were these individual 48 volt chargers. Each one of those delivers 48 volt at roughly 20 amps. There are 4 here. There is one that I have mounted in between the standard rack on both sides, just to provide some extra support to this very heavy inverter. I will point out that I never actually use the charger that's underneath here because it is going to overheat. This one I use conservatively, again, not getting enough thermals on that to run it long term, but it provides more support to the rack than anything else. These individual chargers, again, I've wanted flexibility, so I have created it's a little bit ghetto, I know. Those 4 chargers are connected to a homemade plug. There are 2 chargers on each of those plugs, and this means that I can choose to charge using 2, 4, or 6 chargers at the same time. These chargers are pretty awesome because they support both 110 and 220 volts. Now, what that means is that I can plug these bad boys into the Cybertruck's onboard power, or what I've chosen to do is I've made a bit of a ghetto solution underneath all of this. Excuse all the cabling. I have 3 of these which actually route through down to this bad boy. Okay, that was super easy to mount, believe it or not. All I did was, not going to take it off right now, this screws off with a 25-cent coin. Disconnect it, and you will see that this, which is available on Amazon, that has a 3-way split, which connects into the trunk, into those boys, and I plug those boys into there and close it all up. And then when I get to a charger at the office or etc., I simply plug in over here, and it looks a little bit less ghetto than dragging cables over the side of the truck and into the bed. What I would love to do is obviously permanently place those cables. I didn't want to drill holes through here into this sub-trunk, but I think I found a solution, because underneath those batteries is an access panel where I think I can permanently place those cables straight through into the port at the back. I do like the flexibility of being able to plug either one or more in. Also like that I can plug these into a generator, so this supports both 110 and 220, and I've specifically chosen this particular type of plug for a number of reasons. But this means that if I only have access to a 2000 watt 110 generator, I can plug that into this, and I can throw 2000 watts back into this battery bank. Obviously all of that is connected to the distributor, which is going to hopefully equally charge these individual batteries. So we're sitting at 92, 93, 92, 93%, getting quite a nice even discharge there at roughly 50 amps per battery. Okay, let's go and see what the truck is doing with this power. That's Coda, she's my boss. Huh? Yeah, honey, she helped with everything. All right. So far, we are charging at 11 kilowatts, 48 amps, and it doesn't sound too impressive, but we've added 2 kilowatt hours so far. Yeah, so there we go. We're not going to sit here all day. We've just hit 50% of charge across the batteries. So what has that 50% actually got me? We'll be sitting in the baking sun, great view. Fans are doing pretty well. Let's see what 50% of my range extender has given me in terms of real world mileage capabilities. Okay, so that's taken me up to 70%. Ignore that, I had to move the truck a couple of times, hikers and folks in golf carts. We started off at 57%, so that's given me a good 13%, call it 14% on half the battery. That should equate, if I double that, to a good 25% of additional range. There we go. And still charging at 48 amps and quite happy. That's it, folks. I hope you found it worthwhile. Thanks for the folks that have had relevant and constructive feedback on my build that I did behind me. The idea behind this was to not save money. Yet I know that I could have bought a 20-year-old Ford F-150, and yep, I know that I could have put a reserve tank on that, and I'm very aware of what these things cost and what Elon promised and all that kind of good stuff. Point is that I enjoy technology, love-hate relationship with the truck. I did this as a fun project. I'm always looking for cool stuff to do. And I'm a little bit of a prepper, so I built this for me. I don't intend to monetize what I've built, but I do intend to share a little bit of my experience of what worked, what didn't work, and hopefully you guys find it useful.